These are the 4 warning signs that you're eating too many carbs. Let's dive into this because I want you to master carbs. They're not evil, but maybe you're eating too many of them. Let's talk about this for a hot moment. So first, I want to bring your attention to macronutrients. There are 3 of them. There are carbohydrates, there are protein, and there's fat. When you look at these 3 nutrients, macronutrients, when we ingest them, they all have a different glucose response. That's called the glycemic index. So the glucose response of carbohydrate is that you're going to get a big spike and you're going to follow that by a big crash. So as high as your blood sugar goes is going to be as low as your blood sugar would go. Then protein doesn't have as big of a spike, and so it's like a little more gentle lift, and so you get kind of this uplift but doesn't go as high as carbs, and then it'll kind of gently come down. So something interesting about those 2, the carbs and the protein, that I really want you to understand is that when you're doing like a pure carb bomb, like a bowl of cereal, and it's just milk and grains or oatmeal. That's why I'm not a fan of oatmeal. You're just getting this big increase of glucose, and then you get this crash pretty quickly. Soon after that, it makes you hungry again. So you eat again, and then you crash, and then you eat, and then you crash. So this is a big problem with carbs. With protein, you don't get that. If you had, let's say for breakfast, even berries and Greek yogurt, or you had eggs and some sausages, it's much more protein filled, so you're not gonna see that up and down as dramatically, and you're not gonna be as hungry, you're gonna have more energy, and ultimately you won't store as much fat. Now, that leads me to the third macronutrient, which is fat. And this is why you'll hear me talk a lot about a fasted snack and how you can eat things in your fasting window. I spoke about it in Fast Like a Girl. I really dove into the fasted snack idea. It was based off of research that I found that showed that if you could eat a pure fat bomb and elongate your fast a little bit more, that you got all the incredible metabolic benefits of somebody who shut the fast down early because they were hungry. So like if you got hungry at 15 hours of fasting and you were like, oh, I'm going to break my fast, and you eat, that person didn't lose as much weight as the person who said, hey, I'm going to have a fat bomb and try to go another 2 or 3 hours. They actually lost more weight. And that's because that fat just stabilizes blood sugar, like puts the brakes on blood sugar. So with those 3 macronutrients in mind, let's dive into knowing how you eat too many carbs. And the first way you know you're eating too many carbs, specifically in one meal, is that you get fatigued. So you should be energized after a meal. You shouldn't be sleepy after a meal. Those of us, this is why we fall asleep after like a big meal, like a holiday meal. In the States here, we have Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Christmas, you might find it after Christmas. But you get all these carbs that come in, and we used to say for years it was the tryptophan in turkey. It's not the tryptophan. It's that your blood sugar went up so high that all of a sudden now you come crashing down. So you want to make sure that if you're fatigued after a meal, you reverse engineer that meal and go, maybe it had too many carbs. One interesting thing was that a 2020 study found that blood sugar spikes cause fatigue and trouble concentrating. So if you get that mid-afternoon slump after you eat lunch, it's possible that you ate too many carbs. So you're going to see one of the ways you'll know you did too many carbs at a meal is that it's going to be that combination of fatigue and loss of mental clarity. Second thing that tells you you're eating too many carbs, and that is food craving. Okay, this is really interesting. Again, let's go back to this idea that blood sugar is coming up and then it comes crashing down. So if you're going up and then it comes down very, very quickly because you had just like this pure carb meal, when it comes down, your body's so smart that it's going to be like, hey, I need you to eat more carbs again to bring that up. So it's going to be up and down and up and down, and you're going to be like, I feel better. I'm tired now. I need something sweet or caffeinated to bring my energy up. And usually the thing that you'll crave in these down moments is more carbs. So it's really interesting that there is a 2011 study that divided people into 2 groups. I love these kind of studies. It was a low carb, high fat group, and then it was a high carb, low fat group. And what they found is that the low carb group had a significant decrease in food cravings, especially for sugar and high carb. Okay, well that makes sense. They didn't get this dip where the body said, give me more carbs. They didn't have, if they were doing more protein, they had just sort of a gentle lift and then it came down, not as up and down. So those cravings stopped. They also saw a decrease in hunger overall. Those that had a high carb diet in the morning had the worst craving. That's because you started your day off with all of those carbs. This is why I'm not a fan of breakfast cereal. I'm not a fan of orange juice. I'm not even a fan sometimes of protein drinks if you don't get enough protein and fat in it and it's just a carb-rich meal. What we typically eat for breakfast is causing us more cravings in the afternoon. So getting low carb right is really important. And if you're going to have a higher carb meal, personally, I think mid-afternoon, like after the work is done, not too late at night, but maybe for an early dinner, 4 or 5, go for a walk afterwards. You use those glucose. That glucose could be really important. Okay, the third reason that you're struggling with or know that you ate too many carbs is when you struggle with weight loss. For years in my clinic, I would do a lot of low carb plans for my patients, and they just worked like a charm. I mean, people would come in and they'd be like, I have a fundraiser I'm going to, I have a wedding I'm going to, I have a time period, I need something quick, and we would do low carb mixed with some different fasts, and it just melted off. So the third one is if you're struggling to lose weight, low carb is really an awesome plan. Now, low carb doesn't mean low protein. So if you bring down your carbs and increase protein, your hunger will go away. You'll be a lot more satisfied. And you continue to lose weight. So low carb doesn't mean starvation. An interesting 2004 study found that 6 months on a low carb diet led to twice as much weight loss than a high carb diet. So sometimes these prepackaged diet foods that you can get out there are really high in carbs, and they might be low in calorie, but their carb load is so high that it's not a long-term effect or way to sustain weight loss. So really interesting, 6 months on a low carb diet. So really important. If you're struggling to lose weight, let's get off the carbs. Okay, check this out. I have a free fasting guide for you all. It's free. And it's going to teach you all the basics of fasting. It's going to teach you how to kill hunger when you fast, which is really cool. And it's going to show you how to break your fast, among many other things. All you got to do is click on this link right here and enjoy. Okay, number 4 is really interesting. And it's something we don't talk about when we're looking at carbs. And that is it. The one way you would know you're eating too many carbs is if you start to have skin problems. So eating a lot of carbs can start to create an inflammatory response in your skin. This is especially true in this study that I'm about to quote when we ate too much sugar, white rice, and refined bread. Now let's talk about those 3 before I tell you about the study. Sugar. If you have acne and you want to clean up your skin, I highly recommend you get off sugar and just give it a try and see what you find. So getting off of sugar can help with the acne. But what this 2020 review, so they reviewed a lot of different articles, found was that when the glycemic load in people's diets went up, so that's the amount of sugar that they ate, they saw greater increases in skin inflammation and acne. And they related this review related it back to an increase in all carbs, but specifically sugar. So it's really been interesting to be in the nutritional world, teaching different types of ways to eat for the last 26 years, but really here for you all on YouTube. I've been dedicated to giving you videos for the last 10 years on topics like this. And I think what's really interesting about the low carb movement is we've gone from this place where everybody was like, it's amazing, I lost so much weight and I feel so good and I have so much mental clarity, to people villainizing it. And one of the problems that we have is we're always looking for absolutes. You're just never going to find an absolutely perfect diet or an absolutely perfect fast that will work for everybody. It's what works for you. So when we look at carbs, they're not the enemy, but man-made carbs, not a lot there. I would say the only one I've been really thinking a lot about that I'm bringing back into my diet is sourdough bread. Yeah, that you have to grow the wheat, but it's fermented. That's why I like it. It's a man-made. It has to be processed. That wheat has to be processed. But outside of that, when you're eating like a pasta, it's just a dead food. There's nothing in there. Sourdough bread has a lot of enzymes and probiotics in it, so it's a live food. It's actually not a dead food. So a lot of these man-made carbs are just dead, and they have these high glycemic spikes. So I really want to bring back this idea that we start talking about good carbs and bad carbs. And bad carbs are what I just talked about. They're man-made carbs, and good carbs are nature's carbs. So this is anything that comes from the earth. So this is really your fruits and your vegetables are the main ones, and your potatoes. Quinoa I'd fit in there. So if quinoa has a lot of protein in it. So I think we have to really look. I love these 4 things. I love you looking and saying, okay, am I sleepy after a meal? Am I struggling to lose weight? I'm even going to throw in the brain fog. Do I have brain fog after a meal? Am I craving a lot of sugary things? And what's my skin look like? And then once you dial these 4 things in, then could you ask yourself, okay, maybe I'm eating too many carbs. Well, what if I just for tomorrow, like you could watch this video and do this tomorrow. Like what if just for the next week I decide no man-made carbs. I'm only eating nature's carbs. Do that challenge and then see how you feel, because I think you'll find that the earth has created a lot of good carbs that are great for making this neurotransmitters like serotonin. They're great for making hormones like progesterone. We need them. I'm not anti-carb. I just want to make sure we're eating smart carbs. We're eating them for women at the right time of our cycle, and that we're not overdoing carbs. And I think these 4 things will help you get in the ballpark on that. So let me know in the comments if that helped, if that kind of gave you a paradigm shift on carbohydrates. It's really important to me that I'm giving you videos that are expanding your mind. And so let me know if you resonated with that. I'd also love to know which one of these 4 that you use to tell yourself that you have eaten too much carbs. I can tell you for me, the biggest one is fatigue. If I'm tired after a meal, I'm like, what'd I do to that meal? Think maybe I didn't have that meal dialed in. As always, you're a miracle. And the food industry has tried to take that away from you and give you a bunch of toxic food. But when you move away from those toxic foods, you start to understand your body better and you eat what the earth has provided from us, you'll discover what a miracle you are. As always, I hope that helps. If you love this video, I did a great video called Should You Eat Eggs Every Day for Breakfast? So you need them to make things like serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters that give us a good mood balance, make us happy, make us calm, give us joy and satisfaction. The precursors for those neurotransmitters are all inside this little egg.